Hello and welcome to another episode of Searching for Truth. This week I am exploring fostering. If you have managed to listen to the first episode, Searching for Truth episode on adoption, then you'll already know that I do have experience of fostering, as in I was adopted into a fostering environment. So I'm very passionate about fostering. And my guest this week is Donna. Donna is someone that I met not that long ago. She's recently fostered 2 children, siblings, and she's had experience with fostering in her own upbringing, like myself. In doing this Searching for Truth episode, truths have already started to become untangled. In fact, somebody is now on the waiting list of the agency that Donna talks about, a very good agency from the sounds of things. What's come about from me digging around this truth is that there are agencies out there that are not as good as they should be. And I say that because I've heard, just in this short space of time, testimonials of people that have experienced fostering agencies whereby the service and the support is not up to scratch. So whilst this is upsetting, it's also what Searching for Truth is all about, because my passion for fostering is the children and the well-being of the children. For it to work and for it to work well, then the support has to be there for the foster carers. So who knows where this is going to lead on from here. I'm already looking into further interviews to explore this area of fostering. So if you do have any experiences yourself, whether they be good experiences or bad, of fostering agencies, please do get in touch. searchingfortruthdj@gmail.com. In the meantime, sit back, relax, and enjoy the next episode of Searching for Truth on fostering. So Donna.
Hello.
Donna meets Donna.
Yeah. Randomly meeting.
Yeah. We did, didn't we?
Yeah, very random.
So in this interview, this podcast, I'm going to be talking to you about fostering.
Yeah.
But I also do feel that we probably might have other things to talk about in the future as well. Mm-hmm. And I think with rather than talk about that bit now, I think we might end up leading into that. But yeah, Donna and I, we met in a cafe. Your business.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, you own a business. It's quite a new business, isn't it?
Yeah. Opened December last year.
Yeah. So managed to get there just before lockdown.
Yeah.
And a great service, which was you really, because you were there serving us the coffee and whatever and coming over. But I felt really well, we got on, didn't we? We got talking, ended up having a selfie together and giving each other a hug. And it's not often that you know, I really don't sort of do that every day. And I think sorry.
It was nice. It was nice actually. It really made my day. It really nice when you connect with people.
Yeah. And I think what really connected me to you was when you mentioned that you'd just recently fostered 2 children, a brother and sister.
Yeah.
Searching for Truth, if you've already listened to any of the podcasts, the first one I did was on adoption. My mum and dad adopted me, but they also fostered so many children over the 25 years. And a lot of my siblings now, because it was long-term fostering, they are, you know, they're my family. Yeah. And I know how well it works for children if it's done properly.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what really touched my heart when you told me that, Donna. It turns out as well that we did know each other from another business. I'd seen your name in a WhatsApp group, and it was you. Anyway, we won't talk about that. I really want to talk about fostering, because I want to find out about you. I want to find out about, have you fostered before these two children? Have you thought about it for a long time? What led you up? What can you tell us that led you to getting the two children that you've got now?
Okay, so when I was 18, my parents had brought me and my sisters up. I was the youngest of 3 siblings, and Mum and Dad decided they were going to foster. I don't know if it's something they'd discussed years before, but as I'd reached the age of 18, they felt that now was the right time. So because I was living at home, my sisters had both left home, I sort of went along to the kind of training that my mum and dad did. And I was very much part of the process. And then they started having young children coming to live at the house. So for me, that was the first experience of fostering. Then when I was 21, I met my husband and I moved in with my husband. And we decided, like, to help mum and dad, we'd be backup foster carers. And we did this for 10 years for mum and dad. So when they wanted to go away, we'd either go to their house or, depending on how many children they had, they'd come and stay at ours. I had my son a few years later. So my son was very much involved with the foster children. And then my parents used to take my son and my sister's 2 children on holiday for the 6 weeks. And they'd all be away together. So that was very much part of, for me, it was the norm to have children in the house. Then sort of when we had our daughter, just before we had our daughter, we didn't really have the space at home. We were like a bit, I don't know, not in the right good place together. We'd been together a long time, and we stopped doing the backup caring for mum and dad. Fast forward, mum had breast cancer, and that's when they stopped fostering, but they've done it for 25 years. Most were short term. There were 2 young boys that were long term, but it broke down in the end. Then I had my daughter's disabled, and at that time I wanted to advance in my career, which I went ahead and did alongside everything else. And then about 8 years ago, I'd been praying to God, because I do believe in God. I'm a Christian, because I felt in a bit of I was working in care, but I didn't feel I should be there anymore. But then I didn't know what else I wanted to do. And I prayed, and fostering came. So we went through the process about 8 years ago. Went with an agency, went through it all. Our son had agreed with it, said he was happy. And we thought it'd be a nice, somebody else in the house. We was with that agency for 12 months and never got one referral. It was hard, because we'd had the intrusion of social workers coming in and out, and then still doing spot checks, still doing supervisions. And we're like, when are we going to get a child? We've got a disabled child, we're also a mixed race couple. Surely there's a child out there that would reflect us as a family. We've got the understanding with disabilities, but we've also got the understanding with different cultures. So in the end, after 12 months, we handed in our notice and thought maybe it just wasn't the right thing.
Did you get any response from them? Did you get, because I know that there's lots of children.
Nothing really from just sort of one of them things. The agency was having a lot of staff turnover. I didn't feel the social worker had the oomph to go out and search and profile us to other children that were out there. I don't know. And I just said, why are we sat here in limbo when like everybody knows there's kids out there that need a home. So we sort of put it on the back step and sort of forgot about it. And then 18 months ago, something happened at home, and it had quite a big impact on the house where we were robbed. And I think that started challenging us inside of what do we want out of life. My husband was unhappy at work. I still was in a muddle at work because I didn't feel like I was where I was supposed to be. And for me, that's a massive thing. I have to feel this is where I need to be for me to be happy and for me to give my best. Yeah. So we sat down and talked, and we says, right, redundancies were coming up at my husband's work. We wanted to spend more time at home and be with our daughter. And we said, well, shall we try again? And the actual manager from the last agency had set up his own agency with his wife, and it'd been going 7 years. So I got in touch with him, and I think we got in touch with him in the September. We went through all pre-panel stuff, all through the F1 form, is it? Where they delve into your life. They really, really go into every nitty-gritty part of your life. And then we were approved on, I think it was the 25th of February. And then I think it was about the 6th of March.
That's how you would expect it to be, really.
Yeah. These 2 tornadoes landed on the doorstep.
I love the way.
Respite, apparently.
Say that again.
It was for 2 weeks respite.
Right.
Then we went into lockdown.
Oh, okay. So that's changed everything, obviously.
And also the other carers gave notice because they were dealing with a lot of other stuff. They had another foster child and they didn't feel it was working within their home for them and the children. So it was kind of like, I don't think the social worker from their social worker she wasn't too hot on the idea of them staying with us because we had a disabled child, and they were looking also for a family that didn't have any other children. I don't know if you know now as well, it's all about therapeutic parenting. So you don't actually parent how you would parent your own children. It's very different to how you're supposed to sort of approach different things. Obviously being in lockdown, they couldn't really look for any other carers. So they've sort of stayed with us. And throughout that time, I've said, we don't want to put plasters on hundreds of children. We just want to make a difference in a couple of children's lives. We want to do that, but we also want less impact on the house because of our daughter and understanding new people coming in and out the house. Mm. And to be honest, they've settled really well. The young lads
almost that's like where there's a cloud and everything with lockdown, because chances are if that hadn't have happened, they may not be with you now.
No.
Wow. And they've really settled, you were saying. They've
yeah. The young lad was having sleep issues. He goes to bed and sleeps all night. Meltdowns every night, but not here, not ours. They're both very happy. I'm not saying there's not days where there's issues, and there's going to be because of their start in life, but they're children, and if we can just love them, then hopefully make
And
a
you
difference.
said something when we were having our chat yesterday about the girl, how she's it was an emotional thing. Did you say, like, so she's pushing me, she's pushing me almost as if, you know, expecting. I think children have, you know, if they're expecting, or if they've been rejected before.
I think even adults, because it very much reminds me of when I first met my husband. I'd had loads of really bad relationships. I had very low self-worth, didn't feel good enough to be loved. And the way that she is actually reminds me of myself. But then I look at her and think, you're this young and I was that old, and you're dealing with them emotions.
Yeah.
You know, so it just shows you, you know, even in such a short time, the impact you can have on somebody's mental well-being and actual confidence and how they look at themselves.
And it's so important to really be trying to get to do this work as whilst they are children. It's actually easier than when you're adults to deal with these issues. I'm really pleased that mentoring, I don't know about now, because who knows what changes have occurred now, but mentoring was becoming a big thing in schools. And I'm very passionate about working with younger children, which is probably why I resonated with you and what you're doing so much, because I understand the importance of getting issues untangled and hopefully sorted so that you can go into adult life. And also, I'm a real believer in, if every child could has unconditional love, doesn't have to be from their parent, it could be a grandma, it could be a foster parent, it doesn't matter, it's unconditional, it's there. And the child begins and learns to trust that actually this person, this being, is always going to be there for me, is always going to have my back. I mean, if they can find two people, even better. But that solves all these later issues that happen in later life.
I've said, I mean, I worked in mental health for 20 years. So I've seen the opposite side of people coming through the adult system, worked with people that were within forensics. And I've believed for a long time, if we put more into our children as a society, as a community, as a government, we would have less issues later on in life. But it's like things are taken from, you know, different sources, so there's things not in place so these children can be cared for effectively. Whether that's, you know, enough social workers, enough doctors, GPs, nurseries, enough, you know, people talking to each other and working together, rather than being overloaded with work and only doing a small amount of what they should be doing. Then, you know, I know it's not about money, but they'd save money eventually. On the other side, eventually. But it's always short-term goals for the government. And this is what I do, you know, big thing about governments and stuff, that, you know, actually they're failing our children. And if you fail our children, it's only going to come back later on in life. It's not rocket science, is it, really?
It really isn't. It really isn't. And 100% believe what you're saying there. So I know you mentioned you went through a little bit of that form, the F1 form. There's things that you have to go through. How long is the process? How long does it take? So anyone listening or watching this is interested in going forward. Is it what's the process?
Okay, so we phoned up in the September, and I think it was a September or October, late September, early October, that they were waiting for a new social worker to start, So I think we started in the November. So I'd say it takes about 3 to 4 months. So they've got to you've got to give references. They go out and meet family members and other people references that you've asked them to. They look for work references. They'll speak to you together as a couple. They also speak to you individually. You have to go through like your childhood experiences and that sort of thing. Even if you've got anything on your DBS, some people think, well, if there's something on my, I've got a record. Even then, obviously, if it's not really bad, it's worth going and talking, because you're not exempt from doing it. And I think what our agencies talk to us about, different things that have happened in my life and things that have happened in my husband's life, they actually make you the people you are today. And if you've been through stuff, you're more likely to sort of connect and understand what these kids are going through.
I'm really glad you've mentioned that, Donna, because I absolutely agree that experience and making mistakes can be what makes you. It's a means of growing.
Yeah.
It's a means of searching, like pretty much what I'm doing here, searching for truth. It's a means of searching for who you really are.
Yeah.
So I'm pleased you've mentioned that, because some people have done some like petty crimes, when they were like kids, really.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm really pleased you've mentioned that, because I don't want that shouldn't. I'm glad that the agency looked at that.
It shouldn't, I don't think, but I mean, obviously, if you've got sort of, you've been in prison for armed robbery or
yeah,
or even, or battery or domestic violence or abuse or anything like that, obviously things like that, but there's crimes that people commit, and they do it at a time when, they're not making the right choices, but then that gives you life experience as well, and it is worth going and asking the question. Medical issues as well, people might think, oh, I've got this wrong with me, or I've had this in the past. Discuss it. Don't let it stop you from making that call and just asking. Some people might work with you, some people might not. So, I'd definitely say it's worth, if it's something that you feel in your heart that you want to do it, just like any new job you would want to apply for, you go and do some groundwork to see if you could go and do it and ask them questions. And although it's not like a job, fostering, you still got to go through a process of being sort of, interviewed and asked about, certain things. So I wouldn't let it stop you.
And what about space? Because you've got a brother and sister, haven't you?
Yeah.
So did you have to have two spare bedrooms, or how does it work on that? So people listening might be thinking, oh, I haven't got enough room, or just to give some guidelines on that.
Dependent on the background of the children. I know my parents, they had a bunk bed in one with siblings, and then a different child sleeping in another room. We have 2 spare bedrooms, so the children have a room each. But it would, again, it's about background of the children. So, even if you foster one child, makes a difference to one, could change the world for that one person. So it's definitely, worth looking at. I mean, we only have a 3-bedroomed house, but our daughter sleeps downstairs. We've got like a wet room and bedroom for her downstairs because she can't use the stairs. So yeah, again, it would be discussing it with the social worker and saying, oh, well, we're willing to have two, but we've only got one room. So then they would be looking at children that could share that room.
Yeah. And how is it with your daughter? How's it kind of worked? The synergy, or whatever you call it, in the household with your daughter.
We had a very quiet house. I mean, our son's 10 years older than our daughter, so we've never had a very busy house, because obviously we had our son for 10 years and then we had our daughter, and obviously with her disability she's never been like running around or anything, so we lived in quite a quiet house. Having two very young children that are siblings come into the house has been like two little tornadoes, but it brightens up the whole house. We smile more. It took a while for our daughter to sort of adjust to having these children in the house, as if to like, well, where have you come from? And because of the disability, we've not been able to sort of say, well, oh, this is what's happened and this is why they're here. Also for them to come across a child that doesn't speak or walk, for them it's been a bit like they've not known what to do. But we go out, and the way the two foster children interact with her and how caring they are towards her, and her to them, she'll go up and initiate play with them, and they just think it's great when that happens, because like she's taking notice of them.
I think another reason we connected is that, I don't know if I've told you this or whether I told you when we were in the cafe, but my mum and dad, they had my sister. So before I was adopted, they had a daughter who was mentally and physically handicapped. And nowadays they'd have got millions of pounds for the negligence that caused that in the hospital. Unfortunately, back then that wasn't the case. So she was in a hospital because they couldn't look after her. And we used to go and visit her every Saturday until sadly she did pass away. But I think when you told me about your daughter, it was just another means of connecting with you. And I just think, I hope this comes through. You've got a real, and your husband, you've got hearts of gold. You really have, and I'm so pleased and blessed to know you. And
You too.
Thank you. I'm so glad that the children have found you. You found them, whichever way you want to look at it. I'm so glad that they're with you. And do you think it's likely that they're going to be with you now? Are they going to stay with you?
We've asked, and we're currently looking to schools that are nearer us. So obviously, because of the lockdown, they would have had to have a really good reason for them to move again, because that's what you want to limit, really, is the changing, because each change of a new home has a massive impact on that child. So I think because it's working, and it's working well, that is my forward thinking focus, is that they stay with us until they're ready to leave, like any other child leaves home.
Yeah, I think you'll be very much like my mum and dad, as in they never really will leave. They will leave, but my mum and dad, I mean, some of the foster children have had children who've then had children. So my mum and dad are grandparents and great grandparents to so many children, because they fostered so many children. And they've done a fantastic job, bar a couple of circumstances which they're still kind of carers really for 40-year-olds. Other than that, most of them have flown the nest, and they're but it was never a matter of, right, okay, you're 16 or whatever age is now, goodbye. And I don't think it would be the same for you. because you've got that heart to be doing it in the first instance.
You know, it's you can't, you wouldn't ask your own child to leave at a certain age. You know, I didn't even want my son to leave when he did. I was like, oh, don't leave me. But he has, and you know, he's pretty good actually. He's a good lad. He cooks, he cleans, you know, he does his own washing and ironing and stuff. So, you know, he's got a good grounding, and that's the sort of thing I want, you know, these children to learn is, you know, looking after themselves, their own parents, and, you know, taking care of themselves. So when they do get, you know, when they do fly the nest, you know, they can do it and they can survive.
Just want to talk to you a little bit about adoption and fostering, because some people listening might be sort of on the verge of wanting to do something, but not really sure. I mean, with fostering, so in your instance, the two children that you've got, have they still got contact with their birth parents? Yeah. So fostering is that's so you will always foster rather than adopt. I've never really, I suppose with adoption it's something that it's, you know, all rights of that child with the parent have gone, so then you would be allowed to foster. I think it has to be that those parents would then decide that they no longer wanted any responsibility for their children. And I suppose that's why you go from short-term fostering to long-term fostering. I don't know. For me, it's always been about fostering. I don't think we've really thought about adoption, and I don't know why, to be honest. It's just been, I suppose, because we've known more about it. This is what you do. Your experience. You've had quite a lot of experience actually with your mum as well. Your mum and
I suppose when you're looking at adoption, usually you're looking at adopting younger children as opposed to children that are part grown up, I'm guessing. And how is that side of things with them seeing their their birth families emotionally? Does that work out okay? Well, it's only happened once. Obviously, because of lockdown, it's difficult to have done it. So there's only been phone contact. So and they were fine. Adjusted already.
I've got quite an exciting angel reading in front of me that I've done while we've been talking. But before we talk about that, can you tell me a little bit more about this therapeutic parenting?
So okay, so back in the old days, you'd be like, go to your bedroom, you'd sit them on the naughty step, you'd be obviously shouted at, or, you know, you've been told no, you can't. And I'm not saying we don't put boundaries in, but if something's happening, rather than fight against it, you sit with it and try and work it out that way. I find it really hard to explain. So they have said to us at the agency, we seem to really get it, but we think we get it because we've mothered a child with a disability, parented a child with a disability. So instead of looking at, oh, this person's angry, they're being naughty, or they've done something wrong, they've broken something, or actually what led to that, rather than looking at what's happening now, you look at what leads to it. So naturally for our daughter, if she's biting her hand or getting agitated, she's not doing it for attention, She's doing it because she's trying to communicate something to me. So you have to learn to look at every possibility as to why that behaviour's occurred with her. So in the same sense, it's the same sense with these children. You can't even begin to imagine the emotional trauma that some of these children have gone through. So if they're behaving in a certain way, it's not because they're being naughty or because they are naughty. And you shouldn't be labelling them naughty. They're dealing with trauma. So actually going like hot-headed into it, or isolating them, or taking away their favourite teddy is only going to cause further trauma.
Yeah.
And I suppose, and this is what I've said to the social worker, because we're doing therapeutic parenting. We started the training and then we got put in lockdown. But what she spoke about on the training, them first few times I went, for me, I just thought, isn't that common sense?
Yeah.
Well, it's not. It's cause and effect, isn't it? It's cause and effect constantly.
Totally. Yeah.
So yeah, that's. I think there's a lot more. If I was a professor, I'd go into it a lot better. But I am there. And
I think you've come across really well, and I wish that there was some more of this therapeutic teaching going on in our schools.
Yeah.
To be honest, that in schools we're always going to have that. You're going to have some teachers that are really good and some that just
get it, and some are just awful. Yeah, I remember one year my son, when he was in junior school, he was doing so well, and then he had this teacher, and his grades went down, everything, and then eventually I went in there and I said, I'm not happy. You tell me how he can be achieving. And then this happened. And when he was called a nigger once, he was never.
Wow.
She didn't even deal with it effectively. And I'm like, there's certain words, and we used to talk about name calling. We're going off subject, I know, but and I talked to him about it. Do you want me to go to school? And he'd say no. But that when the M word was called he was called the M word once. And I went and discussed it with his teacher, and it was like, nothing. So yeah, but then when going into the special school, have you been into many special schools?
I've been in special schools, but not many, because I do a lot of I used to do a lot of magic workshops, and I wanted to get into special schools, but no, so not for a long time.
Well, if you look at how they work with the children, and I know they've not got as many as kids, but when the day I walked into the school that Faith goes to, and I've gone in and I'm like, can I go and spend a day there just to watch and see what she does? Because she can't come home and tell me what she's done. And I just looked and I thought, wow, if this kind of teaching happened in mainstream school, what a whole lot of difference it would be. And it's, again, even in school, children need to be loved and respected for who they are, because they're little beings in their own right that need to grow, and they will grow what we feed them. So it should be happening. The same thing should be happening in schools. We should be feeding them properly instead of, like you say, negative.
Well, especially now, I mean, always, obviously, but like going back, I mean, it's going to be a whole range of emotional issues going on when they go back next week. And yeah, it's a cause for concern in mainstream schools, actually, because I don't think they were doing a very good job before. I mean, it's obviously, I'm not casting that on all of schools, but they're going to have their work cut out, and it's going to be hard for the teachers, because the teachers have been off as well.
Yeah.
So everyone's got to kind of get that oil back in and get me, and it's just, but please just consider like what we're talking about here, more so than ever.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think when we went into lockdown, my thought was with all them children that are in you know, being neglected, that are suffering abuse, or in, you know, families where there's domestic violence or anything like that, how intense their lives are going to be for that time. And then they've got to go back to school and act normal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, I salute you for doing what you're doing. Honestly, I really do. And I felt it when I first met you, and you're changing 2 children's lives, and it's a beautiful thing.
Can you hear my sister singing?
I can hear someone singing. Yeah, is that your sister? Bless her.
She's singing to Faith. Shall I go and shut the door?
No, leave it on. So I've done an angel reading. Now, what I do is I choose 3 cards. I shuffled them. I was shuffling them when we were preparing this. Started shuffling them, and then I draw 3 cards. And then I turn the card over. This is, I've always done it, so I know that they work for me this way. And then I turn the pack over, and whatever that card is like for me, the way I look at it is that's the overall card for the reading. And I love this for this, what we're talking about, because the overall card is the guardian angel of young adults.
Oh,
which I think is really poignant for what we're talking about. We're talking about children growing into young adults and having that love.
Definitely.
Another card was, which again, I just honestly, the more I do these cards up here with Searching for Truth, the more I love them even more, is the angel of eternal love. You've got to have love, and health. This is the guardian angel of health. I mean, ultimately, what we're when we're looking at children, we're fostering and the upbringing, we're talking about love, we're talking about health,
well-being.
There you go.
Complete well-being of them, both mentally and physically.
Yeah. The first one I'm going to look into, and I will probably make a note of it in the little introduction to this podcast, because I'm not a medium or anything. I'm not like a tarot, you know, like, oh, this is that.
White witch.
Well, not that I know of anyway, but I've got a book that will tell me. But it's the Archangel of Uriel, and what it says on the actual card is, its divine light shines from within. I'm eternally radiant, loving and wise. So I'm going to look into more of the information on that one, because that was the first card. So I think that actually is saying something more than what I've just read on there. But yeah, beautiful. I think those cards. It is. It's all about love. I believe that we're all love. We always have been. It's where we come from.
Yeah.
And it's there, but over years and circumstances and situations and events and traumas, we forget it's there. We don't even realize it's there. Maybe we never knew it was there. But if we can be on this path of becoming aware, and then we can start tapping back into it. It's people like you, Donna, that with the 2 children that you've got, are helping them to, and they're not far away from that love either, because they're still children.
Yeah.
So children should be just playing and not caring about anything really, until they need to. They really, and so that love should just always be ever present. But as we know, that's not the case for a lot of children. But it's people like yourself and your husband.
And I think as well, though, it's not just a reflection on the parents of these children as well. You know, I think we, as a society, we jump to conclusions about, you know, well, how can these parents do this? But, you know, everybody's circumstance is different, and none of us know where we're going to end up. You know, you look down at the man, on the homeless man. You know, he lived in a home once. He might have had a job, he might have had a good job, and we just don't know what life's going to present us. And it's not about judging any family members, or you know anybody would do this, and we just don't know what we're going to walk into in life. And you know, I don't want this to reflect on anybody that's also that has had to put the children into foster care, because there's very many different reasons. Some, you know, are not good. Others, you know, there was no other way. And I think people should remember that as well when they're looking at the kids as well.
Yeah, and we touched on that a little bit in the adoption podcast.
Right, okay.
Because, you know, I can't thank my birth mum because she's no longer here. But now, especially as I now know the full story of what she was going through and what my life would have been like if she had have kept me.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to her for letting me go. And I'm so aware that that was probably one of the hardest things she had to do. Every birthday as well. I think, you know, but she did the absolute best for me. And I know I wouldn't be here doing this now. I'm doing this now, and because I had from a very young age, because of her, the unconditional love from my mum and dad. And she gave that to me. She gave that gift to me. So you're absolutely right to say what you've said there. Let's never judge. Let's never, you know, everything. I do believe amongst the madness of this world that everything happens for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've said to the children as well, you know, it's because they've talked about mum not wanting them and stuff. And I says, well, you know, things happen. And all that matters is that, you know, you're here with me now, and you're where you should be and where God wants you to be. And this is where I love you. And, you know, maybe you needed to go to them other houses, or, you know, the other families, just so, you know, you could get to me. You know, so try not to look at it as in a negative way as well. Yeah. But definitely not to judge anybody. Yeah. I think that's what people do too much of, judge.
They do. So much judging going on. There really is. I'll tell you a little story. I mean, I work, I used to volunteer quite a lot in the refuge until lockdown, and then I can't get in there anymore, which is such a shame, because I was doing wellbeing sessions with the women, and I was doing magic workshops with the kids, and all of that really good stuff stopped. Like literally stopped in an instant. Like at a time when you need it most, they need it most. It stopped. It's annoying, but when I was working with them and I was hearing, and they start to trust in me and tell me a little bit about their stories, what I was also doing, or used to do a lot of, was with the homeless. And I used to build up quite a good rapport with a lot of the homeless guys and girls, but mainly guys, a few girls, but mainly guys. And it was I'll never forget. It was like I was hearing some of these stories from the women, and they're getting through going through the emotions around the perpetrator, and then it suddenly clicked. It's like, I'm working with women here, but I'm also working with potential men on the streets that they're talking about.
Yeah, they
are now, you know, and it's like, you've just got to be neutral. Everyone has got their journey. Yeah. You know, whereas some people are like, well, I'm not going to do any homeless work again, because, you know, you can't know. Everyone's got their journey. And if we can all come back and all see through the perspective of, we are all one, we are all love, we are all, you know, I associate, you said you believe in God. I do too. I believe that we are actually all one.
Yeah.
And we could call that God, we can call that source, we can call that creator, but we all come from this same place. That's why I get so annoyed with this color.
Yes.
Yeah. It just annoys me. It's like, because put that away and let's just come back to what we all are. You know, we've all got a nose, got
Yeah.
eyes, got ears, got hair. It's all different. How lovely
Yeah.
is that? Because
Yeah.
actually, fundamentally, we're all the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Take the skin off.
Yeah.
We're all the same, completely underneath.
Yeah.
Unless it's a few internal organs between men and women, but
Yeah.
you know, we
Yeah.
bleed the same. We are the same. Other than our own features, we look the same. Like dogs look the same, cows look the same. You know, we've all got distinguishing features. So why should we pick out that different feature? You know, it's I could go on, you know me, I'd go on to that one. That's why I've tried not to veer onto it.
What I've loved is every podcast that I've done so far has veered here, there, but it's all sort of veered either to podcasts that I've already done or that I've got in line to do. It's all around searching for truth, searching for our own truth, searching for truth. So I love that. I love the little diversions we do.
Brilliant.
Donna, is there anything, obviously, ultimately, what I would really love for this podcast to do is to encourage more families. I mean, even single parents can foster as well.
Single parents, couples that are of the same sex also, you know, they consider anybody. You know, even there's some on some of the training I do, there's some quite younger family people that do it. So it's not even about age. It's not about having your own children before. You might not have any children. You know, may not ever want to be in a relationship with somebody but still want to have children. This is again another way you can do it. It's, you know, it's open to everybody. And I think, you know, people, if it's ever crossed your mind, go and look into it. Don't let a little something stop you.
Yeah. And hopefully anyone listening to this might just think, yeah, okay, I'm going to look into it. Where would be the best thing? I mean, I see lots of sponsored ads on Facebook now from fostering. But I mean, what would you suggest people do if they're thinking about, I want to go ahead, there's all these ads coming forward, what would you...
Well, you've got your own city councils where you do it through your city council, and you would just go onto a website and look, for instance, Birmingham City Council, and go into fostering. There is lots of agencies out there. If you're looking at an agency, I would phone a few up, get a few of them to pop around and see you and get a feel of the agency and the people that you're speaking to.
Okay.
See how many. So you might have an agency that's based in London, but they might have lots of different ones all over the UK. You might think it's a good idea, and it might be a good idea to go with somebody like that, but is the support there for you? What support do they provide you as well? Because you need the support. You need to know that you're doing the right thing. You need the training. You need to understand, you know, lots of different things. You know, it's like with anything. You can't just go in there but not without your eyes wide open, because it's a big thing to do, and you've got to make sure it's the right thing for you, because otherwise it'll be another child that comes into a home and that's, you know, goes on again because it hasn't worked. So that support for you needs to be there. So it's worth checking out what support they provide you. The agency I'm with at the moment, there's a therapist that's available all the time, you know, 24-hour on call, supervisions monthly. They have a youth team. The agency actually do loads normally for the kids, you know, and even lockdown hasn't stopped them. They've been doing like Zoom stuff, and you know, they've got a YouTube channel going on for them. You know, they've been sending activities through email for you to do with them. So, you know, and that contact has always stayed there. I've never felt alone or isolated at any time. So it is worth looking not just at the person that comes into you, but the whole setup of what they provide to make sure that those children are safe and that it's going to work.
So, I mean, that agency you're with sounds fabulous.
They are.
And I'm really glad I asked the question, or we started talking about that, because those listening, you've set a bit of a bar there, and I think that's good. To ring around, and
people look too much and think, oh, it's all about the money. It's this, you know, me and my husband have both given up full-time jobs. It's 24/7. This isn't like a 9-to-5 job. 7 days a week. We've set it up so our son is a backup foster carer, so those children aren't took out of the house and gone to respite, and they still feel safe that they're not going to go somewhere else, you know. So for that, you know, obviously the agency are getting paid a good wage, but what are they putting that into? Is it about them, you know? And I think that's why you need to look at what they're going to provide, because it isn't just about them getting paid and you getting paid. It's about what's happening to make sure this placement doesn't break down.
Yeah. And also, I've got somebody else that's looking into fostering again. She's older now and she's looking into it. And she does cards similar to the angel cards. She does tarot reading cards. And the last update I had from her was like, how's it going? You're going to look into it again? She was like, yeah. And she says, I've done a reading on it. And one of the cards that came up was patience. So we talked about, oh, wow, you know, well, with children, definitely, you know, you need a lot of patience. And I spoke to her the other day and she said, Donna, I don't think it's the children, it's the social workers I need patience for. Didn't turn up when they said they were going to turn up, didn't ring when they said they were going to ring. Like the first contact, it's just been, you know, and she was trying to get hold of me, my friend, and I wasn't there. And she said, Donna, I rang you because I was so angry. She says, and that's when she told me about the whole patience thing. She says, it's patience with them I'm going to need. So I guess there's that as well. I mean, certain organisations now more than ever are going to be, sadly, not very organised. But what's that impact going to have on you trying to do what you're doing, the children, obviously, the whole process, the whole support mechanism? If they're not supported, if they've not got it right, how's that then going to impact on you trying to do what you need to do?
Yeah. And I've got to say, like I said, through all of this, I've not felt at all left to it. It's been harder because it's like, you know, gosh. And they've not been able to come out and see us physically, but FaceTime, Zoom calls, clinical meetings have all still happened. You know, the social worker has still kept in touch, their social worker. So, you know, it shows, you know, I would expect, I understand that things happen and things change, but I expect people to turn up on time. And if they don't, and to call back. And if they don't, then what's their priority?
Yeah.
Because you have these children.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Well, Donna, I mean, things could only get better from here.
Yeah.
I'm touching wood on that one. Really, when you think about the 5 months we've had of lockdown, pretty much you got your children just before that happened. So there's so much great stuff that you're going to be able to do with those children. Like you said, with your daughter as well, you haven't been able to go swimming and stuff like that. So there's so much stuff you're going to be able to do when things start getting back to normal.
Oh yeah, excited. I mean, I think like most people this year, we've kind of done a few little things, and we went to Cornwall for a week, and you know, we've done little things, but nowhere near what we want to do. You know, I'm so excited that next year maybe we'll be able to go on a holiday abroad or something, do something really nice with lots of warm weather and stuff, and you know,
Yeah.
just do normal things like normal families, and you know.
Yeah. And that's going to mean the world to those children. I mean, we used to go packed up, we used to get a minibus, and we were off to Mablethorpe every summer, and those are the memories, real lovely memories of us all. So yeah, as I said before, salute you for what you're doing, and thank you. I think anyone listening to this that might be sort of on the verge, or we're on the verge of thinking about fostering, hopefully they might just look into it now, have a little bit more confidence.
Yeah. Brilliant, thank you.
So is there anything you want to say, or
No.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Donna. I absolutely have loved doing this with you today.
You too. Thank you.
So what did you think? I don't know about you, but I definitely am convinced that there's going to be a sequel to this. I'm liking the idea of having perhaps testimonials from people that have experienced fostering, and I definitely want to hear from you if you've been put off by fostering because of the agency. Perhaps you felt you didn't have the support, perhaps you lost patience. Whatever the reason, or maybe it's a good experience, or have you got, like Donna was talking about her agency, I've passed the details of the agency she's with to the other lady I was talking about in the interview, and she is now on the waiting list. So if you've got any recommendations, wherever you are, please share, because this is really important. It's really important that we don't put a barrier in the way of prospective parents, families, people of fostering children. You know, it's just such a shame that can even be the case. I'm also very wary of the money side. There's a lot of money that is being paid over from local authorities, but are the checks really taking place to ensure that these foster homes are absolutely doing the right thing for the right reasons? I'm really wanting to dig around and find out a bit more, but it's not going to be for next week because I'm already digging around in another area. I'm not going to say anything here because there's no guarantees which one's going to come out first, but rest assured there will be another episode next week. So thank you everyone for watching, listening, however you managed to get this episode. Thank you very much. Please get in touch with me. Email is searchingfortruthdj@gmail.com. I'll be back next week. Have a good week. Until then, bye bye.